Hi everyone, my name is Kyra Lisse. I'm a sophomore. I'm a creative writing major and classics minor, and I've been a member of the Writers House community since the beginning of my time at F&M, but maybe even before that, because whenever I would come for campus visits, I would always stop in, and I fell in love with all things Writers House, and it was definitely one of the big draws to F&M for me. So thank you for this opportunity and all the others you've afforded me. Today I'll be reading for you an excerpt from an essay I wrote for an English class last semester. The class was called Engaging Texts, and it was recently chosen for one of the English department's Hensel prizes. It is the Junior Hensel Prize, and the essay is called The House on Mango Street, Reading Sally. The term subject is a compound of the Latin preposition sub, meaning under, and jacere, the Latin verb for throw. Its later participial form, subjectus, clarifies its intention, cast under. The verbal imagery here suggests a kind of inferiority, of subordination and powerlessness. However, the English language is never satisfied with monosemy. No, that would be too easy. Any student of grammar, literature, or Jonathan Culler's literary theory, A Very Short Introduction, will note that the term can also describe a person or thing with agency. Yet it isn't enough to simply look at some archaic etymology and then consult the ideas of one author. A true critic will put his or her theories into conversation with other texts. Take, for example, Sandra Cisneros' The House on Mango Street. The 1980 novel depicts Sally, a friend of the narrator Esperanza. From childhood to early maturity, the female figure projects an image of agency, when, in reality, her fate rests in the hands of an unforgiving patriarchy. Among the first details we learn about Sally is that her physical appearance attracts the male gaze. And just as that fact emboldens her, so too does it condemn her. On the one hand, she responds to schoolboys' attention with apparent confidence. Esperanza reports, "When she laughs, she flicks her hair back like a satin shawl over her shoulders." End quote. Her actions here demonstrate a high degree of self-assuredness and poise. She tosses her hair aside as if it were an elegant and expensive luxury, whose elegance and expense have not so much as occurred to her. As a result, she gives the impression that she lays claim to her own body and whatever she chooses to do with it. But this image of self-rule shatters in the very next sentence when we encounter Sally's father. Quote, "He says to be this beautiful is trouble," Esperanza explains. "They're very strict in his religion. Sally can't go out." End quote. Now, we begin to view her in light of the misogynistic landscape that has quite literally trapped her in. It is not Sally but her oppressive father who dictates what she does with her body, and that includes no dancing, wearing makeup, or even laughing. To put it in Culler's terms, Sally is a subject that is given and social. Herself, as Esperanza represents it, is governed by social factors far beyond her control. And so even if Sally composes herself in the schoolyard, quote, as if no one is watching, she must ultimately return home, where the only male gaze fixed on her will be that which squelches the few freedoms she has. A later chapter features Sally with bruises all over her face, placed there by her abusive father. Although she attempts to gain narratorial control over her situation, spinning it to appear less bleak, the true narrator, Esperanza, helps to paint a more candid picture. Indeed, Sally repeatedly tells Esperanza that, quote, he never hits her hard, a clumsy qualification of he hits her. And when she must explain her bruises to the public, her minimization snowballs into flat-out fabrication. Quote, then at school she'd say she fell, end quote. If Sally is indeed powerless against the abuse, at least she can bend the narrative so as not to let it mar her reputation. In Esperanza's view, however, Sally's efforts are in vain. No one believes her story. Instead, they and we see a girl whose father beats her into submission, and, more deeply, a daughter whose selfhood is decentered by a merciless male hegemony. In the following scene, Sally tries to assert her womanness, so to speak, by agreeing to a game that a group of boys has contrived. One snatches her keys and promises to return them on the condition that she give each of them a kiss. Esperanza recounts, "Sally pretended to be mad at first, but she said yes. It was that simple." End quote. Taken at face value, Sally seems to have a choice in whether or not to honor their request. Beneath the surface, though, lies a question. Does she really have a choice? Or are there social pressures coercing her into growing up fast? Sally, as we have seen, is preoccupied with the image she casts out into the world. In this particular setting, she works with haste to distinguish herself from the kids, i.e., to portray herself as older, more feminine. Esperanza adds that Sally would scream, quote, if she got her stockings muddy, and would punch one of the boys with a soft fist. Both details fit the description of man's ideal woman, ditzy and delicate. It's a distinction that reduces her, as Kohler phrases it, to an essentialist identity. In that way, one could argue that Sally is wielding power only inasmuch as she is configuring herself to be someone she is likely not. If such a thing can be called power, then it is a power from which powerlessness emerges, a kind that may be worse than no power at all. When we last see Sally, she is married, sent away at a mere 13 years of age. She speaks of her husband in much the same terms as she did her father. That is, she tries to downplay the gravity of her situation, all while the narrator aims to emphasize it. Quote, she is happy, except sometimes her husband gets angry, and once he broke the door where his foot went through, though most days he is okay. End quote. Here as before, Sally acts as if she possesses more control over her circumstance than she truly does. This time, however, the teen has no public eye to impress. After all, she hardly ventures outside. This time, she has only herself to convince. Thank you so much.